So effective reports. So Smartsheet's core app has three basic things that are sheets, reports, and then dashboards. Today, we're going to be talking about reports. For those who joined a couple of weeks ago for our last training session of Smartsheet, we had the effective meeting management session, part 2, where we talked about how you can use meeting management and do task management in the same log. And we're going to be using that sheet as a base for this report today. So this report, I'm calling it effective reports as a base report. What this is going to be doing is we're going to use this report to have a nice view of different things that are part of the individual sheets. So first thing about reports is that you can have multiple sources than just one sheet on a report. What that means is that you can grab data from 2 sheets or 3 sheets and put them all in a single report, which is this button here. So you can select the sheets you want to use, and you can use the report on all of these sheets, and the data will be brought in from all of these sheets. Now, I'm using the Effective Meeting Management Part 2 sheet as my source for this report today. The next thing you can do is cater towards the specific audience or specific use case that you want to cater to, and use the specific columns you like to show on the report. So here I've got 11 columns mentioned that I want to present. And if I want to add any specific columns, I can add things like created date, created by, level, etc. For this purpose of the report, I've added a few items already, and I want to stick to those columns. So I'm going to be using action items, agenda notes, category, invitees assigned to, key decisions, meeting due date, project name, sheet name, status, etc. All right, these are my columns. That's my source sheet. Now, what else can you do with a report? Reports are really, really cool if you use them properly for certain things like, okay, if you have a team meeting that happens every Monday, for example, and you want to show the core things that you want to show, then it's a perfect use case for a report, because you can cater to, like, let's say the high risk items, or you can cater to like the completed or not started items. So we're going to look at that today. How do we effectively show this data from different sheets into a report? So filter criteria is the next option that's available for you. I'm going to add a condition that says, I don't want to see all of these items, like things like summary, etc. I only want to look at my meetings and my tasks. So I'm going to add a filter criteria for, I'm going to say level. I do not want my level zeros to appear is one of, or is not one of 0. So is not one of 0. What this is going to do is any kind of first higher level item, so those will disappear. For anyone wanting to know more about the levels column, and if you missed the last session, feel free to talk about that in the Q&A, and I can talk about the levels column again after in our Q&A session. But for now, basically what I did was I took the higher level items just away, so that I'm looking at my meetings and tasks. I do notice that my project name, project start date, and Achievan team members, these items are coming in as well. Again, I only want to look at my meetings and my tasks. I'm going to add another filter, add a condition for category is only one of either a meeting or a task. I do not want blank category items to appear here. So that way, if I refresh here, all right. I need to refresh the whole thing here. Let me refresh. For some reason, my project name and project start date, those are appearing as well. So let's look at what's happening there. So I've got my category column right here, and I see they've been listed as meetings. I'm going to remove those from there. Okay, for now, they've been listed as meetings, and we'll just treat them as meetings. So that's what I did. I first of all categorized anything that is a meeting or a task. Now, let's say if I only want to look at my tasks, I'm going to say, just show me my tasks. Then it's going to show me just the tasks. So we've got John to set up the weekly meetings, look at the poll results from the webinar, and sample task for meeting 3. So those are just my tasks. So that's a cool feature. We can just filter on specific criteria. So it's either you want to look at a specific item or you want to look at a specific category. You can do that by using the filters. In the group, you're able to, let me add the meetings back. In the groups side, we can actually, oops. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. Seems like we're going through some problems here. Let's look at this one here. Apologies for this. Okay, perfect. I did have this other report here that actually had the group involved. So this group here is using the group by status. So what it's doing is using all of these different items and it's doing grouping by status. This is a really, really cool feature. It's one of my favorite features of a report where you can group items based on statuses. So for example, these items are in the not started category and these items are in the completed category. That really helps me know what are my completed items and what are my not started items. I have also added some summaries. So for example, sheet name count and total hours sum. What this is doing is telling me total out of all of my tasks and meetings, 2 hours have been completed. There's about 36 hours of items that are remaining. Summaries, again, are really, really cool because on each of the grouped items, you can actually have these summaries. So total hours, for example, I'm doing a sum on, and I'm also counting the number of items by putting the summary in here. A lot of people use reports by just doing the source of, and choosing the sheet and doing the columns. A lot of the times, I think the filters, groups, and summaries are they're very underrated, and I would really appreciate and encourage all of you to utilize filters, groups, and summaries because they're really, really helpful. For example, this use case. Let's look at another use case. Let's say I want to look at not by status, I want to look at by category. So now I know that my grouping is going to be based on my category, which is basically my tasks and meetings. So let's look at that in a second here. Perfect. So what it's now telling me is that I've got 16 items for meetings. I've got 3 tasks. And I've got 32 hours in meetings, and I've got 6 tasks remaining, which is really cool data to know right away, right? I'm looking at the report. I'm getting that data right away, which is so cool. You can also have it in a collapsed mode or expanded mode. So right now I have it in my collapsed mode. So just look at the summary of data. If I want to look at all my items as well, I'm going to be doing the expanded mode where I've got all the items listed under. You can also do the collapsing by each category, and you can look at the other category in expanded mode, for example. But this is basically to do a default of what that's going to look like, what your view is going to look like. All right, so we discussed a few things. We discussed columns that you can use in a report, filters, groups, summaries. Now you can also do some sorting. So people who are fans of sorting, they love sorting by different items. For example, the sheet name, the project name, total hours, whatever you want to sort by, you can sort by. For example, I want to sort by statuses. I'm going to do that. So all of my meetings and tasks are sorted by statuses. However, what if I want to see in the meeting category how many items are completed? In the task category, how many items are completed and not started, for example? Then I'm going to add another group that says group by status after I group by category. What that looks like is something like this. So out of my 16 meetings, I've got 1 meeting that's completed, 15 meetings that have not started. Out of my 3 tasks, all of them are not started, and the total hours needed is 6 hours. Again, this is such a cool summary right away. Like I did not have to work on the metrics, for example. All of these summaries were pulled in for me by Smartsheet by using the summaries tab, summaries section. And then all my groupings were available as well. So at a glance, I can tell, okay, I've got 16 meetings, I've got 3 tasks, and I've got 38 hours in total. And out of that, 32 hours are going to be in my meetings, right? That's a really, really nice summary for all of my sheets that I'm using as sources for this report. All right, so I'm sure we're going to be doing more sessions about reports, effective reports in the future, and we're going to explore some other items and do some really cool use cases. For today, that was all I wanted to cover on the effective reports part, and I'm going to switch to index matching, which is another cool feature that I want to share with all of you here today. If you're familiar with VLOOKUPs on Excel, Smartsheet index match will sound really cool to you, and I think a lot of people do use VLOOKUPs pretty frequently. So I would really encourage all of you to use index matches. So let's go right there. I've got two sheets for me here. I've got one sheet with the index match for the source of it, and then I've got the second sheet for index match for the destination. What it's doing is basically the source is telling me I've got 3 departments and I've got 3 managers. So I want to get their manager name and manager email into my second sheet. So in my sheet number 2, I've got my individual, I've got my department listed. What this is doing is basically it's listing the individual's name and the department, right? I do want to bring in the manager and the manager's email. How am I going to bring this? VLOOKUPs will be like a perfect use case for this, right? If you had something that had this information, you want to bring it up here. However, I would like all of you to explore index matches. There's a much more efficient way of doing this. So how you go about doing an index match is you write index, which is your first part of the formula. And then you basically want the range of information that you want to bring in the information from. What is the information that I want to bring in right now for this column? It's my manager's name, correct? So I'm going to reference another sheet, which is my sheet 1. So let me click reference another sheet. I'm going to type the name of the sheet. So sheet 1 index match. Let's see if it pops up. Perfect. So that's my source of my index match for this purpose, for this use case. And I'm going to choose my manager's name because that's the end result I want. I want my manager's name column from sheet 1, right? So I'm going to insert that reference. I'm naming the reference manager's name column from sheet 1 so that it's easy for me to understand when I look at the formula, for example, right? And I want the manager's name as my final thing that I want to populate here, right? So that's my first part of it. Then I'm going to do another item called match. What this is going to do is going to match what is the criteria that I want to bring from the sheet 1 based on what criteria, right? I want to match the department. So if this is IT department, I want to bring that specific manager's name into the sheet. If this is for operations department, I want to bring that manager's name, right? So what's the search value? I want to search for that department on the sheet, right? Next is my range. What is the range I want to bring this information, tally this information to? I'm going to do reference another sheet. Smartsheet actually does a great job of choosing my sheet before already because I've got my other range selected from this sheet as well. And this time I want the department to be matched, right? So department column from sheet 1. I like my sheet reference names to be like elaborate so that I know what it's saying. And in my formula, I can read it out nicely. So I like to do this. So department column from sheet 1. So I've got my department column. I'm going to insert this reference. So far, what have we got? So we've got index, which is the manager's name column from sheet 1, then match department at row, so department from the sheet, and then department column from sheet 1. So that's my range. Now search type. For my search type, I like to use 0. What 0 is saying is that it's not sorted. What it's saying that is that in my sheet 1, my data is not sorted. So usually a lot of sorting does not take place in our source sheets. So you kind of always want to use 0 because that's your safest bet. So I'm saying that data is not sorted. That's what the 0 says. If I press enter, let's see. Okay, perfect. I've got my manager's name in here from my sheet 1, right? So I use the IT department. So I match the IT to this IT, and then it says, okay, for IT, I need the manager's name. So John Doe, it took that and it placed it in this sheet, right? Now, you know how you can drag this to other cells as well, right? However, on Smartsheet, you can do something much cooler than that. You can make it a column formula. I love column formulas, and I would definitely encourage all of you to start using column formulas if you're not using column formulas. So at the bottom of this, if you right-click on the cell, you will see convert to column formula. If you click on that, it converts this formula for the entire column. So for each department, it will basically bring in the manager's name automatically from that sheet and copy that, right? So for another one, so let's say I've got a test 11 individual, and I need them to be IT. It automatically populates that from the other sheet. And you see how seamless it is. It's so fast. It's so good. And I definitely encourage all of you to use this. Now, same thing with manager email, right? So I want you to say this out with me. First I'm going to do is index, right? Perfect. So I'm going to say index. What do I want here? I want the final goal here. The final goal is my manager's email from my sheet 1. So I'm going to go back to reference another sheet. Thankfully, because we used this reference earlier for the sheet, this sheet for the reference earlier, it's going to automatically choose the sheet for us. And I'm going to choose my manager's email in this case. So I'm going to say manager's email from sheet 1. It's a reference because that's my final goal, right? And then I want to match. What am I matching? I want to match my department name from this sheet and the other sheet, right? So I want a search value of the department, comma, and I want the range. So let's say reference another sheet, my department. So interestingly, the department column from sheet 1 automatically appears because we already created this reference earlier. So we're just using and leveraging the reference we created earlier. And you can select the column and it'll automatically populate the sheet reference name for you. And then you can insert the reference. Now, again, remember the search type is really important. I'm saying my source sheet has, it's not sorted. So I'm just going to say 0, enter. And boom, you've got your emails. Right, I use my email for all the emails there, just so that I'm not alerting anyone accidentally. So I'm going to convert to column formula, and voila, I've got my manager's email as a column formula as well. Boom, right? For some reason, you want to make this column formula not a column formula and make it a cell formula. You can always convert it to a cell formula and then edit that. If you need to edit the column formula, you can click on edit column formula, and it'll allow you to edit the column formula.